This is A Few Good Fights, episode 8. I'm your host, Robert Palin, and I'm joined by the beautiful Sean Taylor. Sean, how's it going?
It's all good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm very, very good. If you're watching on YouTube, the first thing you might notice, or maybe the second thing you might notice, is that Noel isn't on camera. And the second thing you might notice is that we're not in the studio, although Sean looks suspiciously like he's in the studio right now. We'll just leave it there. This is a bank holiday show, as we said on the last bank holiday show. If it's a bank holiday in Ireland, we'll be doing shows from our home. And Noel won't be joining us today because he just commentated for Brave, if you watched the Brave event on the weekend. And also, I think he's moving home as well. So a lot going on for Noel this week. But we have plenty to talk about in the news this week. Khabib Nurmagomedov said he will fight Dustin Poirier, so we'll talk about that. Darren Till got arrested in Tenerife for robbing a taxi. We'll talk about that and plenty more in the news as well, including the weekend's fights just gone. We'll also preview Jacare versus Hermansson, the UFC on ESPN card, and of course educating young Sean and Sean's weird news and plenty more. Join us for A Few Good Fights, episode 8. So Khabib Nurmagomedov was at the fights last weekend and he had an interview scrum situation afterwards, and he spoke about his next fight. Of course, everybody assumes that's Dustin Poirier, but you know, with the UFC, you don't really know if these interim titles actually work and actually it's going to come to a unification bout. But he did confirm that Dustin Poirier is next. That's what they're working on, and he also said he will smash him. So when you saw Khabib's comments, what was your thoughts on basically him confirming that Dustin is next, and do you agree? Will he smash him?
Yeah, it sounds very Khabib. I didn't actually see the scrum, but I will smash him. It sounds just it's a very simple Khabib quote.
Do you know what he said though? It wasn't even I will smash him. It was like I must smash him.
Yeah,
so
something
that's
like that,
proper Khabib.
Yeah, because Dustin has been saying he's the real belt, isn't it? And I think so. Khabib said he's the real champion. Yeah, with the interim belts, they're a number one contender belt until the UFC says they're not. So I think Dustin is next by all accounts from what Dana has said. So unless he gets injured, I think he is next. Yeah,
I think that's like probably the best way to describe an interim title. I think that's the way we should go with it. It's a number one contendership belt until the UFC said they're not, and they've said they're not plenty of times. So that's why I think this news is pretty encouraging. It's nice to see the division kind of moving the way it should be, and it is an interesting fight. I know when we spoke to Brendan, he said that Poirier has no chance, and I don't think he has no chance. I'll definitely say Khabib should be a big favourite. Mm-hmm. But I think Poirier has shown, especially for me, because I underestimate him all the time, that he has some skills there. And even Khabib, he praised those skills, those boxing skills. I do think the wrestling will be a bit too much.
Yeah, he's very much an improving fighter as well. We all underestimated him against Max. Especially, I was looking through the comments from last week's podcast, and a lot of people were sort of writing Dustin off as well. I've actually seen the opening odds for the fight, and I thought Khabib would be a bigger favourite, to be honest. He opened up around a 1-3 favourite. Dustin is around 6-4, 13-8 mark. I actually thought Khabib would be bigger, to be honest.
Yeah, and he also said that I do agree. I thought Khabib would be a bit bigger of a favourite, but they also said that it's gonna be in Abu Dhabi, I think it is, or the Emirates.
I heard that.
Which is, they haven't gone there in a long time, and they done that big event that turned out to be a shambolic event a few years ago with Anderson Silva and Damian Maia in the co-main event, and then BJ Penn losing his title to Frankie Edgar. And I think they've had some events since then, but they haven't gone there too much. So it'd be interesting to see if they go back there, because that would have to be a big Khabib territory, just considering the belief system around that area.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go back with someone like Khabib. Going over there with BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar and Anderson Silva, it's a bit of an odd one. I think it's somewhere where they can do a big gate as well. They can get a lot of the royalty and the rich folk in, and you can charge any amount of money for tickets. So you can do a big gate, and it's probably not going to affect the pay-per-view numbers that much. So yeah, I think they can do a big gate, and Khabib makes a lot of sense to take to somewhere in that Eastern European territory.
Yeah. Do you think the UFC do a bad job at that? Because I know you're obviously a big boxing fan before you became an MMA fan, and it seems like boxing do a little bit better of a job of actually putting fights in the places where, you know, the fighter should be fighting. You know, like the British fighters fighting a lot of the time in Britain. Although, you know, when they do kind of move on to them huge fights, they genuinely move off to the States. But like Joshua, for example, he fought a lot in the UK, and the
He's
gates
only
that they done.
fighting.
Yeah,
His next fight is in the US. That's his debut in the US.
Yeah.
Like his biggest fight of his career was in Wembley Stadium in the UK. I do think they do a better job. The one that springs to mind is Daly and MVP was in America. Like
yeah.
that makes no sense.
And didn't they have they had a UK card like a week later?
Yeah, to me that makes no sense. Like that does double the gate. You can charge more for tickets, and you do double the gate if you do it in the UK. It generates far more buzz if you do the press conference tour around the UK, all that stuff. Yeah, I think the UFC, it's harder. It is harder because the venues aren't always there.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot easier in England where you have the football infrastructure, and all you have them big stadiums there. You've arenas in every big city. So, but yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to expand worldwide with their fighters and take them to the territories. I mean, they did it with Bisping.
Yeah.
But they did that one they did it at American times in the UK, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, with Dan Henderson. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also another one is probably the way the UFC usually lay out their events. They don't say, we're gonna go here and we're gonna put this guy there, because scheduling reasons generally that it just doesn't work out. So they'll say, we'll book this venue and we'll see what's available, because they they're committed to do X many events on pay-per-view, X many events on ESPN and Fight Pass. So I guess it's kind of a little bit more difficult to kind of do the logistics of it. But with the fight itself, with Khabib and Poirier, if it happens, and it looks like it's happening in September in that area of the world, what's your early prediction? I assume it's Khabib, just based on what we've said.
Yeah, I think it's Khabib. Dustin obviously has to keep it standing as well, but we did see Khabib land a big shot on McGregor. So who's to say he can't at least keep it relatively competitive on the feet? But yeah, I think Khabib's word was pretty good, as in I think he mauls him.
Yeah, mauled him. Yeah, I must maul him.
Yeah. What's yours? What do you see it going?
Yeah, I think Khabib. I want to think about it more. I don't think I'm gonna change my mind on it. I want to think about it more though, because we've done this so many times where a guy who's so dominant fights and you're just like, he's gonna win because that's all he does, and you
never see the guy who you think is
exactly gonna win. But I do want to think about it a little bit more. But yeah, I don't see myself changing my mind on that one.
Yeah, the next we have Darren Till has reportedly been arrested in Tenerife alongside a group of fellow tourists for allegedly trashing a hotel and stealing a taxi. What do you make of that?
What is up with MMA fighters and theft?
Yeah,
McGregor
I
a few
know.
weeks ago robbing phones and throwing them on the ground. It's very weird. Bad time for Darren. 2-fight losing streak. Obviously had that title fight with Tyron Woodley, didn't go his way, and then had that really, really bad knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal, and now he's getting in trouble outside of the octagon. It's definitely a really tough time for him. You can clearly see it. Maybe he's not handling those losses as well as he should be. Maybe he's not surrounding himself with the right people. So it is sad to see, because even after that loss, I still felt like he had a lot of potential and he could still do a lot in the sport. And I hope that this is just an isolated incident and this isn't something that's going to be a trend like some other fighters right now that can't stay away from outside interferences. Yeah. So, when I saw it, the first time I saw it, I was like, gee, he robbed a taxi. Like, what the fuck? It was more so it was like a comedy line, It was like, what the hell? Robbed the taxi and trashed the hotel room. But at the end of the day, as much as we like to say, this is martial arts and whatever, there's definitely a lot of guys, like somebody whom we'll talk about a little bit later with Jacare, who are martial artists. And I'm not saying other guys aren't martial artists, like Darren Till is definitely a martial artist, but this is the fight game as well.
Some people live the life a lot more than others.
Yeah, and this is the fight game, and you see it in boxing all the time. People go off the rails a little bit. I think it's just part and parcel of the sport that we're talking about. So it's not hugely surprising, but Jesus Christ, robbing a taxi and stuff, it's just weird.
It's mad, yeah. What sprung to my mind was we've heard his coach Colin talk a lot about how he basically kicked him to Brazil. Yeah. He kicked him out of Liverpool and said, get to Brazil before you get in trouble, because he was stabbed, if I'm right,
in a nightclub,
in Liverpool, So Colin kicked him out of Liverpool and said, go sort yourself out. And it just sounds like he might be sort of hanging around with the wrong crowd again, getting himself in trouble.
Yeah.
So I hope that isn't the case. It sounds like it is the case. I hope it's not the case, and that Colin kicks some sense into him again, because he definitely has a lot of talent. He just needs to get back in the gym and refocus, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. It's it does. I think you're right. It does sound like that's what's happening. It sounds like he moved off to Brazil and clearly had a lot of success and clearly built his skills back up. And since he's had that, he's moved back to Liverpool. Maybe he's going back to the things he was doing before. And, you know, we're kind of coming from the outside. We're just listening to what his coaches were saying and what other people were saying. So we don't really know. But that does seem like what's happening. And I hope
can only imagine. I can only imagine it would be hard as well in a city like Liverpool, where stars are, like, if you look at the football stars over there, they're so appreciated within the city. So he probably has people pulling out of him left, right, centre for pictures here, tickets here, autographs here, or stuff like that. And then he has lads wanting him to open stuff, and you just kind of fall in with that crowd, like.
Yeah, especially when, you know, you go into this huge fight with Tyron Woodley and probably make it the most money you've ever made. Like, hopefully you made the most money you've ever made.
Yeah.
And then you still headline a huge card in your in the UK and probably make a lot of money as well. And it doesn't go your way, and everything's not going your way. And you probably feel like you just need to let off a bit of steam, and you need to kind of get away from it all and just hang out with your mates. But maybe it's just not the type of people you should be hanging out with. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I hope it's just a case of lads having a bit too much to drink and doing something fucking stupid.
Yeah, man. We all have friends who do stupid things like that. We've all probably been involved in stupid things. Not as far as robbing a taxi or anything like that.
No.
But, you know, stupid things. Robbing a cone or something from someone's
robbing election posters in Ireland is a big one.
yeah. That is a big one, yeah. Dan Ige, UFC fighter, was involved in a bizarre incident, and this could have been in your weird news because it's very, very weird.
Yeah.
Essentially, he was woken up in the middle of the night or early hours in the morning for a drug test, which is, you know, part and parcel of the UFC system. But it turned out that it wasn't USADA, it was somebody else, and he gave his blood to somebody who he doesn't know who it was.
Yeah.
So when you saw this, I assume you said weird news.
Yeah. And then you posted it on the page.
So, yeah, couldn't use it.
A mad story, because did you read the actual story?
I read parts of it.
So what happened was they were calling him. They were after taking 3 or 4 big vials of blood. Apparently, Dan Ige said, and they called him some other name, and he was like, "That's not me."
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it seems to be a case of mistaken identity. They wanted someone across the street, and so then he was like, "Are you not from USADA?" And they were like, "No."
Oh shit.
Yeah. So they took 3 or 4 vials. They took the 3 or 4 vials of blood anyway, even though they weren't from USADA. And then USADA came out and clarified that all their testers were uniforms. But Dan Ige has said that, like, 6:30 in the morning, he's asleep. He just assumes it's USADA testing, grand, let's get it done. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, the first thought that came to my mind was check identity, of course. Like, that's what you need to do. But if this is something that has happened to you a few times, if USADA has shown up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. a few times, eventually you're probably just going to be like, well, you know, it is USADA. Do I really need to check this? And you're probably not even thinking. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking of anything. I'm just like, I want to go back to bed. So you're probably not thinking of any of that. And, like, why else would somebody be showing up to your house looking for blood? So, like, it's silly that you didn't ask for identity, but, you know, why would you?
See why.
Yes, yeah, like, why would you if it's something that happens all the time? But really bizarre. Completely bizarre.
It's a mad one.
His tweet was weird as well.
Yeah, did you see some of the replies
now I have
on his
AIDS.
tweet? Yeah. Some of the replies on his tweet, he's going to get framed for murder now. Someone's just going to plant his blood at a scene or something. He's going to have AIDS. He's going to have all this mad stuff.
Yeah. It's
a very poor lack of communication, the one USADA's part as well.
Yeah. Like, I wonder what, like, when you think about it, like, if you're going to map out the situation, what happened? They knocked at the door. They didn't say his name, I assume.
Well, you would assume when someone knocks at the door, you'd be like, knock, knock, knock. Hi, Sean from USADA here.
Yeah.
Want to do a random drugs test?
Yeah.
And you'd show an identification badge. And you would say Dan Ige. Yeah. And yeah. Obviously, none of that happened. A complete breakdown of communication.
So it was like, walk in, drug test, okay, go in, blah, 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 and then find out. Weird. Like, yes, you would assume that he would have, the person, it was a girl, I think, that showed up, according to the report. So. She would have been like, is this Dan Ige? Or obviously not Dan Ige, but is this John Smith? And he was like, no, it's not John Smith. End the story.
Wrong house.
Yeah, wrong house. Done. But yeah.
He said they took a lot of blood as well, 3 or 4 big vials, like a lot more than USADA would take. And he was asking why the extra blood, and the woman said to him, she was like, "Oh, we're just doing labs." And he was half asleep. He didn't know what this meant, but he just nodded his head and said, "Yeah, okay."
Fair enough. Yeah. Absolutely bizarre.
Mad one.
Yeah.
So Paul Craig isn't interested in fighting beyond the UFC. He said, "I don't see the point in taking massive amounts of damage in other organizations for nothing but money." What's your thoughts on that?
I thought it was really interesting because when I read it, I read the headline and said I'm not interested in fighting anywhere but the UFC, which is understandable. And we kind of talked about that in his last fight or after his last fight when he spoke on the microphone in his post-fight interview and said, "Listen, if I didn't get re-signed by the UFC, I might have called it a day." But I think our kind of idea and our thoughts about that was that's because maybe he's not going to make as much money somewhere else. He's not going to be able to feed his family and make a proper living out of it. Obviously, there is some organisations like Bellator who pay pretty well, and of course, if you go over to like Japan and stuff, but I don't think them opportunities are open to everybody. I think it's just certain people. So that I think that's what we were thinking of. We were like, you know, he doesn't want to fight outside the UFC because maybe he's going to have a lower standard of living. But the way he spoke about it, it didn't seem like he was talking about it in that way. It seems like he was talking about it in the sense of, I don't want to fight outside the UFC, even if I'm making the same amount of money, because I'm fighting outside the UFC and it's not as big of a stage, or it's not as prestigious, which I think is kind of interesting because I think a lot of fighters recently anyway have kind of gone away from that line of thinking, and they've
think so.
Yeah, they're like more so saying, you know, whoever pays me the most money, I'm gonna go there. Rory McDonald, for example, moved away from the UFC because he was getting more
Benson
money in
Henderson.
Bellator. Benson Henderson, there's plenty of and Demetrius Johnson. Although I'm not sure what his deal was. I don't think it was more money. I think it was more of a new challenge. But it's a different line of thinking than the general line of thinking that we have these days. It's more old school. It's really old school.
Yep.
Of I want to fight in the UFC because it's the biggest organization, and that's where the best fighters fight. So that's what I thought, and I thought it was a kind of an interesting comment.
Yeah, they were sort of my thoughts as well. I thought it was someone. It read to me like someone who wants to compete against the best, not necessarily for the money. He's on the biggest stage, competing against the best competitors, and that's what he wants to do. And it also, I also took from it as well that if he retired, if he left UFC or if he was cut, wasn't re-signed, he'd be okay with that. He's not sort of addicted to fighting like other people are, and just sort of going on for the sake of it because they don't know what to do. It sounded like someone who, if he retired now, he'd be okay with it. He'd be
Exactly.
fine.
I think it's that part of the quote where he said, "For nothing but money."
Yeah.
So like he really which is strange because he doesn't look at this as something he does necessarily for money, and of course that's a nice byproduct, and it's you know, it's his job at the end of the day. But he really looks at it as a competition and a sport, which is kind of refreshing, a little bit scary probably for some people, because you know, if you're just fighting for the competition of it all and you're taking a lot of this damage, no matter where you're fighting, it's a little bit scary. But I just really thought it was a very, very interesting comment from Paul Craig.
I really like it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wish more fighters sort of thought like that. Only for the competition. It is real martial artist mentality, to be honest.
Big time. So there was a few fights on the weekend. UFC St Petersburg. Did you watch the main event?
I watched the main event, yes.
What was your thoughts on Alastair Overeem's finish over Alexei Olenek?
Those knees were sick. He is a sick human. We were talking as well. It looked like he was hugging him. It looked so friendly, the knees as well, but those knees are nasty, man. He looked good. He did look very good. He took a lot. He weathered an early storm and he looked good.
Yeah, I thought he looked really, really good. And that's the thing with Alastair Overeem. He tends to do this. He tends to look really, really good sometimes, which is a weird thing to say because sometimes he doesn't. And that's probably just, you know, the heavyweight division as a whole. You know, it's a very, very difficult division to do well in for an extended period of time just because the margins are so small. But I think Luke Thomas brought this up in his post-fight kind of analysis of it. And I think it's true. There's not many people in that division, in the heavyweight division, that uses the clinch like Alastair Overeem does when he can use it. Because if you look at them knees, I just thought it was beautiful the way he was almost hiding those knees with his elbow. So he had that Muay Thai clinch and then he was opening up his body and landing the knees in.
Yeah, they were lovely.
Yeah, and Olenek, which is the mad thing was that Olenek wants that clinch. That's where he wants to be. So once he got in there, he probably felt comfortable. Even though he's trained with Overeem a few times. But once Overeem started landing them knees, you could see how big they were. And then he started to crumble. And I thought it was a really good performance from him. I'm not sure where it puts him in the division. I think in that division now, as the commentator said, one win kind of puts you back in a show. But where do you feel he is, and how far away from a title shot?
That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, Dana has said a couple of times that Alastair Overeem in particular is a guy who's only ever 2 wins away from a title fight.
Yeah.
I think, one more decent win and he probably gets, especially when the division is quite thin, I think he's only ever 2 wins away from a title shot. So if he got another win, he's probably going to get one. I wouldn't have a massive problem with it. He's looked good in that performance. If he looked good in another win, you can justify it.
Yeah, I agree. And he's still a big name. Like, I think people still tune in to see him. I don't think he's going to win the title anytime soon, but you never know in the heavyweight division. And we don't really know what's going on.
No.
By all accounts, Daniel Cormier should be retired by now, according to himself, and he's not.
Yeah.
And he's waiting around for this Brock Lesnar fight, which, we're waiting on as well.
Yeah.
So,
I seen a very funny tweet about Overeem after. Someone said that USADA are failing in their duty to the people by not allowing Overeem to become Ubereem and inject whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, man. I seen a side-by-side picture of Overeem in his Ubereem days, and then just Overeem in his today days, and it's fucking insane. It's fucking insane how big that guy was. Yeah, like he had no neck, and it was just insane. So we'll see where he goes from here, and we'll see what happens in the heavyweight division. Islam Makhachev had a win over Tersukian. I don't know, but he looked good. Tersukian looked good. I was kind of surprised by this because Makhachev, of course, protege of Khabib Nurmagomedov. A lot of people are looking at him as a good prospect, and he is. And I think a lot of people were surprised by the performance that his opponent put in here. Did you watch this fight, and what were your thoughts on it?
I've seen highlights. I haven't seen the actual fight, but I'm going to go back and watch it. But I've read a couple of reports that, by all accounts, I think both guys gave a great account of themselves.
Great account.
Islam's always going to be a guy that's going to generate interest when he's associated with Khabib. But it does look like he's the real deal, to be honest. I would like to see him matched up with a top 15 guy next, I think.
Yeah, me too. He looked good. I think this is going to take away some of his stock just because nobody really knew the other guy. That's just what happens.
It's one of them where people don't want to fight him, and then they see him put in a performance again. Not a performance like that because he looked good, but to see someone that nobody knows look good against him, and they're like, well, I might take that now. Exactly,
yeah, because I think the problem was that Islam, for the most part, looked like pretty dominant against most guys. He has had a little bit of trouble. Against most guys, he's looked pretty dominant, and then an unknown to most people's conscience comes in and puts in a performance like that. People are going to look at it and say maybe he's not as good, but I don't think that's the case. I just think Arman was a very, very good fighter, and I'll be interested to see where he goes as well. Sergey Pavlovich defeated Marcelo Golm. This is what I expected from Pavlovich when he came into the UFC. Throws punches and combinations like not many heavyweights, and he has like I wouldn't say Brock Lesnar physique, but he's in that territory of just big giant dude, and punches very, very hard, and throws punches and combinations as well. And I think his first fight going in against Alastair Overeem was a bit too much too soon. Alastair Overeem, come on, that's your UFC debut. Jesus Christ, they're really throwing you to the wolves. But I think here you got to look at what really he could do, and I thought it was a good performance.
Anyone else stand out to you on the card?
I thought Roxanne Modafferi getting a win over Valentina's sister, because you have to say it's Valentina's sister when you're talking about Antonina Shevchenko. It's not a bad thing, but just saying. I thought her performance was really, really good because she wasn't really expected to come in here and win this one, and just completely out-grappled her. Jocko got a good win, and there was some good performances on the undercard, some big knockouts. Definitely some prospects there, but I think those are the ones that stood out to me. But Sean, was there any other news during the week that caught your eye at all?
There was some related to a former kickboxer, Jarrell Big Baby Miller, failed 3 drugs tests for his scheduled upcoming bout with Anthony Joshua. So the bout was scheduled for Madison Square Garden June 1st, and early last week Miller failed a test, and the test was for, this is VADA as well, so all of Anthony Joshua's fights are tested by VADA.
Is that like when you sign a contract to fight Anthony Joshua, that's what you're signing up to?
Joshua wants that, and his promoters want it. They cover the fees.
Cool.
They just want it. Apparently it costs up to 30 grand as well, so it is quite steep, and it's probably why you don't see it used more often. But it seems to be doing its job. So the first test he failed was for GW. It was a drug GW1316 or something like this. But effectively, it was an endurance drug,
Yeah.
which for a 300-pound man is very useful.
Very useful, yeah.
Because he's quite renowned for throwing punches in bunches, a lot of activity. So 300, so that kind of drug is useful. Came out flat, denied it, said it was a tainted supplement, all this blah blah blah, standard stuff. Then a couple of days later, he pops for HGH, human growth hormone, and injectable EPO.
Cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I saw you yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and we just had a quick chat about this, and that's exactly what you said. You were like, this guy was known for being, you know, a really durable guy when you wouldn't really expect it. And then once all these drug tests come out, you were like, there it
makes
is.
sense.
Yeah.
He was, as I said, he was a kickboxer as well. We were chatting about this last night. He actually fought Crow Cop twice.
Yeah.
Fought Crow Cop twice.
You watched them fights, didn't you?
I watched the second one.
The second one.
Fought Crow Cop twice in Glory. He's adamant he was robbed in the first one. The second one, I thought Crow Cop beat him. It was a good fight. It was interesting. He's a lot smaller then as well, which is interesting.
Oh, he was smaller then?
He's a lot smaller then, yeah. He was about 215 pounds, I think he weighed in it. Maybe a bit more. But when you see that he's 300 pounds plus in boxing, and that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What was he on, I wonder?
Yeah, I wonder. But like,
Mexican meat supplements.
I think we've learned a lot about EPO in the last week with TJ Dillashaw popping, and we know that it's an injectable substance. So there's just no way Jarrell can get past this one. You know, he can't. What's his defense?
But he also failed a test in Glory. That second Crow Cop fight, he failed a test. He got a 6-month ban for that as well. That was another endurance drug.
Jesus Christ! And what he came out and he not apologized, but he gave a statement, did he?
Yeah, he said it was similar to TJ. It pissed me off. I'd rather he said nothing, to be honest, because he came out and said, "Oh, I fucked up." He didn't apologise to Anthony Joshua, who he was going to get in a ring with while on all this stuff. He didn't apologise. He's basically thrown away 10 million as well. He was guaranteed 5 million for the fight and 5 million for the 2 following fights if he lost. And then who knows how much he would have got if he'd actually won the fight.
It's insane, isn't it? All that. Stay off the shit.
Yeah. Same as TJ's statement. Didn't apologise to Henry Cejudo. Didn't apologise to. Just said I fucked up. To me, it just sounds like I got caught. So you're sorry you got caught.
The more I think of TJ and that situation, the more I don't what would I say. I'm not really. I don't feel sorry for him at all. Yeah. Because really. Like going into that fight, like remember all his talk of killing the 125-pound division, and then you pop for EPO and you have no excuse. And he had friends in that division, Joseph Benavidez, who come out this week and said that he's surprised, or he's not surprised that TJ got caught eventually, which is like that seems to be the narrative coming out of Team Alpha Male. I know Benavidez is not really there anymore, but
Cody was banging that drum.
Yeah, Cody, jeez, you taught us all how to do it. What are you talking about? Yeah. So like you have to be skeptical of Team Alpha Male as well, but you know, the more I think about that, I just don't feel sorry for TJ, and I don't feel sorry for this guy either.
There was a big one with Jarrell Miller as well. During a couple of the press conferences, he wouldn't stop at Anthony Joshua about saying you're on PEDs, you're on PEDs.
He was saying that.
He was saying that about Joshua, yeah. So it was really a case of he who shouts the loudest has something to hide, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on. The news that I have, other piece of news that we didn't talk about was Conor McGregor fought last weekend. I fought on Good Friday. Crumlin Boxing Club have an annual Good Friday show. And of course, Conor, that's where he started. That's where his kind of combat sports journey started, in the Crumlin Boxing Club. And he fought, I can't remember the guy's name who he fought, but like a young amateur, I think it was. Yeah. It was just like a glorified sparring match, but kind of cool to see Conor, probably the biggest combat sports star, step into the ring and just spar with an amateur guy. You know, it's kind of a nice gesture, I guess. That was good to see. It reminded me a lot of it reminded me of why I like Conor McGregor. Like when he was coming up, it really seemed like something he would do when he was coming up. For all the bad stories about Conor McGregor, there's a lot of good stories that people don't hear about as well. Yeah. But yeah, he looked all right as well. The man, the lad he was fighting, but yeah, he slipped and ducked a lot of shots. It looked good. There was a good video floating about Twitter. It was, yeah. Nice slipping. Landed his left hand a couple of times. And at the end, they both got raised up onto the their team, or the whole teammates' shoulders and stuff, and had
Yeah.
a moment, photo op. I'm sure. I think his name was McGrain. I think it was his surname. The other
Okay.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a nice moment. Michael McGrain, I
Yeah.
think is his name. Is it? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I didn't see his name.
But yeah, nice moment for him, and
Yeah.
kind of a cool video floating around.
Yeah, it
That was
was.
cool. But yeah, that is the big MMA news, and we're gonna move on to this weekend's card. We'll quickly run through the main card, and give our picks, and maybe Sean will give us the odds if he has them there. UFC on ESPN +9, Jacare versus Hermansson goes down this weekend on Saturday. It's a weird card. It's like almost like a card of prospects versus a card of veterans and sort of big names on the prelims. We're going to look at the main card. Might touch a little bit on the prelims, on the ones that jump out at us. But we'll start at the top. Jacare Souza versus Jack Hermansson. Hermansson fought just about a month ago, from I guess up until the fight. So what are your thoughts on Jack Hermansson coming in here on about a month's notice against a big name like Jacare Souza?
It's a very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
I'm generally not a big fan of quick turnarounds. I think fighters should be allowed to have a rest, have a break. I think the UFC probably put too much pressure on fighters that they won't get the opportunities if they don't take them. But I think, I'm generally not a fan of quick turnarounds. But Hermansson took very little damage in that win against David Branch. It was a guillotine choke, very quick win. So I mean, it's just kind of rolling into one, isn't it?
Yeah. That's my thoughts exactly. Like, I don't really like it if a guy is in a tough fight. You know, for example, Michael Bisping when he took that fight against Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah,
but
that's the one.
That's a completely different kind of worms. This one here, it lasted just a few seconds, ended in the first round. So it's almost like it's just two camps. So once his body can take two camps, I think it's fine. But it's definitely a big step up in competition for him, because if you look down his resume, he's fought David Branch, which was a step up, I thought, anyway. And I did pick Dave Branch in that fight. I thought he'd done a good job there. But then Meerschaert, Thales Leightis, kind of at the end of his run, he lost to Thiago Santos, Brad Scott, Alex Nicholson. So he hasn't really ran into anybody quite of the quality of Jacare Souza. Do you think that's going to be a big problem for him?
I think it's the biggest problem, that he will face. I think, but he's very much an improving fighter. I keep using that phrase, an improving fighter, but it does leave something unknown when someone is an improving fighter and when they are stepping up in class, fight on fight. I think it will pose problems to him. I think we'll learn a lot about Jack Hermansson in this fight.
I agree, and that is correct. I think with really improving fighters like this, you don't really know where to put them, and it's only when they step in there against the really, really good guys that you can judge. And I do like the way he fights, but I'm not sure how successful it will be against someone like Jacare, because he does like to go to that guillotine. He does like to mix in his grappling, and I don't think his striking is quite at the level that he can only strike with Jacare and be successful. I think if his game is going to work against most guys, he mixes it up. You could see against Dave Branch, he done well on the feet. He has that kind of in and out style. And I remember I rewatched that fight yesterday, and it was funny because Daniel Cormier was like, he has this jittery style, and Dominic Cruz was like, what's a jittery style? And he's like, well, an in and out style. And he goes, all right, so in and out style. It was like Dominic Cruz, he has such a dry sense of humor. It's funny.
Yeah.
But he does. He has this kind of in and out style where he's long, but he doesn't really fight long. He kind of jumps into the pocket, lands some shots, and he kind of uses that to get takedowns. But I don't know how successful that's going to be against someone like Jacare, who is just an incredible grappler and who I think can get takedowns against Jack Hermansson. So for me, I think Jacare wins this fight because his striking is probably competitive. I would say it would be competitive against Jack Hermansson, and if it hits the floor, I just think it's another level, and I think Souza wins. I'm not sure what the odds are. I think you might have them, but I'm going to go with Jacare Souza by like a second round submission.
Yeah, I think the step up between Branch and Jacare is a little bit too much for me. I'm going to go Jacare as well. So yeah, Jacare is 1-2 and Hermansson 6-4. So yeah.
Makes sense.
Probably fair odds, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. It'd be a big win for him. Greg Hardy has another co-main event slot on an ESPN card. Not too surprising, but we won't dwell on that too much. Against Dmitry Smolikov. Smolikov, I watched a few of his fights, but you can't really find a lot, which is a problem.
There's a lot.
Because he's been on a lot of the regional scene, so it's kind of difficult to find. But I did watch him, and to be honest, as much as probably people don't want to pick Greg Hardy to win. I'm gonna pick Greg Hardy to win here because I thought Hardy looked okay. I thought he looked good against Alan Crowder before the illegal knee. And he's clearly a really good athlete. And I think at heavyweight, we spoke about this before, at heavyweight, I think if you're an excellent athlete, which he is, I think you're going to go pretty far with that. And Smolikov, I didn't really see a whole lot from him that I think will trouble Greg Hardy. The only thing is that he is a good wrestler. And if he can get takedowns, we see in Greg Hardy's ground game isn't the best. He can stand back up to his feet, but it's, you know, he's just not the best down there. So if he can get takedowns, maybe, but I just think Greg Hardy, just being a better athlete and the bigger puncher, probably wins this fight.
Yeah, Greg Hardy, another come-in slot, whatever you think of him, he's in the UFC are pushing him. He has that NFL background, you know, he's marketable. He's a big favourite as well. He's 3-10. The other guy, Smolikov, is 11-5. I think he's well matched here, Hardy.
Yeah. As much as I don't like to say it, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of Dimitri's chances, but it seems like he's been brought in to fight Greg Hardy because he wants to give Greg Hardy a win. Just seems like that. Mike Perry versus Alex Oliveira is next. Mike Perry, what an interesting guy. I love the way he fights, but sometimes it gets him into trouble. Alex Oliveira, he's the type of guy who I feel like he can show up sometimes and look excellent, and then other times he can just get involved in a brawl or not fight to his potential. But when you see this fight, what was your initial thoughts on it?
Interesting matchmaking, I think, as well. Yeah. You're not really sure what you're going to get from Oliveira. I do like Mike Perry. He's grown on me a bit as well. He's a bit mental. I'm struggling to make a pick for this fight. I don't know. I think it depends what Oliveira shows up as well. So it's a bit like Cerrone, isn't it? In that sense, you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah,
I think Mike Perry has shown that his grappling is okay, and he has good takedown defense, but he can get caught when he's on the floor. And I think Oliveira, while his wrestling isn't amazing, he has shown he does have some wrestling, and he can bring it there. I think as well, though, as I said kind of on the beginning of this, he does get involved in brawls, and that's kind of where Mike Perry lives, and that's what he likes. And I think Mike Perry's still improving. Even though he has that Donald Cerrone loss, I thought he looked good in that up until he took him down. I'm not sure why he went for that. But like the Paul Felder fight was good. Obviously Paul Felder, you know, slightly undersized at that weight. But I don't know. I kind of like the way Mike Perry fights, and I think Alex Oliveira does allow the fight to get into a brawl. And if he does allow the fight to get into a brawl, I'll favour Mike Perry because he's more durable. So I'm going to say Mike Perry. Not confident about it. I'll be interested to see what the odds are on like this. But what's your pick?
Yeah, Olivier is a small favourite. He's 1-2, and Mike Perry's 6-4. I think a lot depends on how much Perry has learned from fight management, the fight IQ of the Cowboy loss. Like shooting for the takedown was silly. Going to the ground was silly. So if he learns a lot from that, and his fight IQ is improved, I can see him getting Lou in. So yeah, I wouldn't be against Perry at 6-4.
Yeah, I like it. I actually like that bet. We'll go with it. Although I'm not that confident on it.
Yeah.
Glover Teixeira fights Ion Cutelaba in a fight that I believe was supposed to happen a few events ago. And Cutelaba got injured. Let me check my facts. I am right. Cancelled bout for UFC on ESPN +1. That was the Cejudo versus Dillashaw card. So now they're going to get matched up. Cutelaba has had a kind of an on-off run in the UFC. He's kind of trading wins and losses, but he has a 2-fight win streak now. But it's definitely the biggest test of his career for sure. And Glover Teixeira, even though I feel like he's declining as a fighter just because of, you know, usual reasons, meaning age, I still think he's competitive. And we've seen against Carl Robertson, I thought his performance there was really, really good against a guy who was up and coming. So I like Glover Teixeira here. I think his wrestling is good. I think his striking is really good if he can get going. He's generally just a puncher. Doesn't really use his kicks, but I like it. But yeah, I kind of fancy Glover Teixeira here.
Yeah, I agree. This is the biggest step of Cutelabala's career, I believe. So the odds are quite interesting here, actually. Cutelabala is a big favourite. He's 4-7. Glover, yeah, he's 4-7. Glover's 5-4. So I'd be agreeing with you on that one. I think Glover's a good pick at 5-4.
Wow, I'm actually surprised by that one.
Yeah.
Go with all over Glover on that one. Well, he'll probably lose now, but all over. This is probably my favourite fight on the card. It's John Lineker against Corey Sandhagen. John Lineker, of course, is one of the most entertaining fighters that you'll see in this division. Big puncher, and has had some incredible fights over the years. And Corey Sandhagen, for me, is definitely one to watch. Again, it's another one of these fights that we've spoke about it all up the card. It's a step up in competition for one guy in Corey Sandhagen. So what are your thoughts on this fight initially when you see it? And what are the odds actually? Give us the odds right now. I don't want to know the odds.
I'll give you the odds first. So Lineker's a 4-7 favourite, same as the Glover, and then Sandhagen's 5-4. But yeah, first thoughts when I seen this fight, I'll be honest, I hadn't actually looked at this card before we recorded this. First thoughts when I seen that, oh fuck, that's a good fight.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
I like that one. Yeah, I agree. Step up again. The matchmaking on this card is really interesting.
Yeah,
they're just stepping up a lot of guys against veterans and good guys as well. But yeah, a good fight. I like it. Yeah,
I love this fight, and you know what? I'm gonna go on Corey Sandhagen. I'm gonna take him. A little peek behind the curtain. When I wrote a little bit for MMA on Point, there was a video that we done for biggest prospects to watch in 2019. I was pushing to get Corey Sandhagen on it. Didn't get on it because it was a kind of a, we had loads of people there, but I was pushing for that one. And I really like the way he fights. He fights really technical. His grappling is really, really good. That armbar he got on Mario Batista was beautiful. And he just fights well everywhere. I'm not sure how he's going to deal with that John Lineker coming forward, landing shots on you type style. I just don't know. We haven't really seen it too much. But I have a feeling he's going to be able to deal with it, and he's going to be able to fight at range, and he's going to catch him. Don't know if he's going to finish him, but I think he's going to be able to work him a little bit. And, John Lineker, he likes to take the front foot, and I think Corey Sandhagen is actually pretty decent fighting off his back foot. So I'm going to go with Corey Sandhagen. It's a bit of a, an unknown pick because I still think I understand why Lineker is the favourite here. But I'm going to go with Sandhagen. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I thought you might go with Sandhagen. I know you're a big fan. I'm going to go against you on this one. I'm going to take Lineker just because I think the prices are quite fair on this one. I think Sandhagen probably should be a little bit bigger, just given the step up. So yeah, I'm going to take Lineker.
The opener on the main card is another big prospect, or you could probably argue two prospects, maybe one's not quite as big. Roosevelt Roberts against Thomas Gifford. I watched a bit of Roosevelt Roberts before the show, and I was very, very impressed with him. He's a long guy for the division. He fights at 155, both guys do. Interesting thing though, he does well against the smaller guys because that's generally who he fights against. But Thomas Gifford is actually bigger in this one, so it kind of makes it an interesting one. But I do like the way Roberts fights. He kind of, again, like Sandhagen, he fights well everywhere. He has kind of a measured striking style, and when he gets it to the floor, he mixes in strikes and his submissions very, very well. I'm going to go with Roberts. I think he's just the polished fighter right now, even though he has less experience than Gifford. But I'm going to go with him. What are the odds on that?
Can't get odds on this one because bookies don't put enough attention to MMA.
Jeez.
But anyway, the main card fight and it's not on it. They have all the big names on the undercard, but Do you
have a quick pick on that one?
I don't know a lot about either fighter, so I'd only be bluffing. Some might say I'm only bluffing anyway.
We'll say Roberts. Is there anything on the undercard that jumps out to you? Because when I looked at this, I initially took a look at the main card and I went, shit, that prelim card has a lot of big names on it.
Yeah, a couple of names stood out to me. Jim Miller, Jason Gonzalez on the card, and then Andrei Arlovsky and Augusto Sakai on the card as well. They both stood out to me.
That's fun. Them two are fun. Ben Saunders against Sato. Gilbert Burns, who for a while was a prospect, could still say he's good. Is on the card as well. So yeah, pretty good card on the weekend. I'm actually looking forward to it. Hopefully it's early. That'd be nice.
ESPN have been looking after us here in Europe with some of these early cards.
They have. So
big up ESPN.
Yeah, keep it up. We love it. But let's move on to educating young Sean. So Sean, we gave you two fights last week. We're going to start with Rich Franklin versus Anderson Silva, which is the one that Noel gave you, I believe. What was your thoughts on this fight? Your first time watching Rich Franklin fight?
First time watching Rich Franklin. I really enjoyed this fight. It was really Anderson's striking is just so creative. Yeah. It was that clinch work again, and the knees, they were kind of disguised as well. If you were watching from the back, if you were watching from behind Rich Franklin, you mightn't see the knees going in. It was a bit like we talked about with Overeem. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The knees were very good. Rocked him a couple of times. Rich Franklin is a tough man as well.
Yeah. I can't remember. I watched the finish of this. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but what was the commentary like? Because I remember it being a big surprise for a lot of people that Rich Franklin was beaten so handily in the end.
Yeah.
Did the commentators kind of reflect that?
Yeah, they gave Anderson a bit of respect in that they said he done well. Kind of similar to what you said last week. He done well in Pride, but hadn't sort of stood out to a massive extent. They were very shocked. It was that typical crazy scenes when Anderson won. They were very shocked, and especially the way he beat him as well. It was so convincing. Yeah.
One thing I noticed when I was rewatching the finish was that when Anderson Silva got that Muay Thai clinch, and we kind of spoke about this with Alastair Overeem earlier on today. It was like Rich Franklin didn't really know what to do. It's like he just has never seen that. And it was, again, that's what I love about kind of going back and watching these old fights, is that you see a lot of things that were not the norm, like that clinch. You know, there wasn't many fighters who fought in that way. And like Anderson Silva just ragdolled him. Like he had him in that clinch and he was ragdolling him against the cage. He looked so strong.
Rich Franklin looked a bigger dude, but Anderson mauled him across the cage a couple of times, much stronger than him. As they said, they actually called it out in commentary. They were like, for such a long guy, not a skinny guy, but if you know what I mean, he was that frame, to be stronger than Rich Franklin. They were surprised at that as well. Yeah,
it was a really, really good fight. And if anyone hasn't seen that one, I would say and go back and watch it. The second fight was Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar for the UFC heavyweight title. This was the one that I gave you. What was your thoughts on this one?
This fight was crazy. Second time watching Brock Lesnar. I watched the Mark Hunt fight, but he was juiced to the gills anyway. But
probably juiced to the gills here as well.
Yeah, realistically. But first time watching Shane Carwin. Two huge dudes. Fucking hell. They said on commentary that Cowan was on a 5XXL or a 5XL glove.
Yeah.
And then I actually went down a rabbit hole. I was trying to find what size gloves fight as well, but I couldn't find it anywhere. That would be interesting to see to people like me. But really good fight. People really enjoyed it. Yeah. Really enjoyed the fight. Like you were saying though, with the game sort of evolving, you can see there how much the heavyweight division even has come on striking wise in that fight. Some of the shots they land, some of the technique is a bit questionable in that fight. But it's two big dudes throwing down. It's fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
One thing that came from this fight, and it was kind of the first time that we've seen it, was when Brock Lesnar was taking the big shots and he was shelling up. And he was like, I don't know if you want to say running, but you know, he wasn't far from a run. He was almost on a jog, and he was like wilting away from the shots. Now Shane Carwin hits like a truck, and we have seen it. Like if you watch some of his old fights, he knocks people out with really short. This is something that Joe Rogan always talks about. He had this really short left hook that he knocked out Gonzaga with, and there was no
weird news last week.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was any power in it, but it's just he hits so hard. So I'm not saying that they weren't big shots, but it's kind of strange seeing someone like Brock Lesnar, who's such an alpha male, such a big guy, like really shelling away from those shots up against the cage.
Yeah, that did surprise me as well. For such a big dude, you'd imagine you have a bit of a chin on him. He was rocked a couple of times. Yeah.
And then he came back and he got that beautiful arm triangle, big man submission. As it generally is.
It looked like Cowan was fighting it and he was doing a good job, and then he sort of tapped out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he blew out his load in the first round, trying to finish him. And fair play to Brock Lesnar. Like he took a lot of damage in that first round and came back. Like fair play to him, because a lot of people don't give him his due for that at least, and came back. But like that takedown in the second round when he came out and he just got that easy double leg and Carwin just fell, and then he passed. You could clearly see Carwin was spent after that first round, but great fight to watch.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So Noel isn't here, so I will give you a fight myself, so you just have one to watch this week, but it's a good one. It's a Pride fight, because I know you love Pride fights.
Yeah.
It was from Pride Shockwave in 2002. It was the co-main event. It was Nogueira, Big Nog, against Bob Sapp. Have you seen Bob Sapp fight before?
No, Bob Sapp.
You know Bob Sapp?
No, I never heard of him.
Man.
I've heard of Big Nog, but Bob Sapp, what a name.
So Bob Sapp is like 350 pounds of muscle. Maybe not 350 pounds, but maybe about 300 pounds of muscle.
Okay.
And he's ginormous, and he's a bit of a joke these days, but back then he was a savage. And
legit.
this was a savage fight. So
Excellent.
check that one out. So
Good.
let's go and quickly move on to Sean's weird news.
So this week, Rob, I have a video of Mini Blessed. Big fan of old Daddy Blessed. Mini
Daddy
Blessed.
Blessed.
Yeah, old Daddy Blessed. But Mini Blessed is a cool little kid as well. And so obviously he was at the fight, UFC 236, and he watched his dad lose. And he was crying after the fight. He was actually sitting beside Dana. He was crying after the fight. He was with his family and stuff. But it's really cool, this video. Big Shaq, you know, the basketball player, Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaq, yeah.
Yeah, he came over and he told Mini Blessed keep his chin up. And then backstage at the fight, Dustin came up to Mini Blessed as well and had a few words with him. It's cool. So if you play the video, then we can watch that.
So there he is. Poor Mini Blessed is in a horrible state.
He's in bits.
See, he's only seen his daddy win, hasn't he?
Yeah. Wouldn't have been born for the McGregor fight.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of family affairs. I told my daughter I was coming home for that belt. What Dustin said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your dad's a champion, brother. All right, Raj? Your dad's fine. He's good.
Very good.
Just gave me his gloves for the good fight.
Yeah, I just thought it was nice about guys to actually come up to him as well. And there was a lot of respect between Dustin and Max, so I thought it was nice.
Very nice. Man, it's got to be tough for the kids. I know if I was a kid and my dad lost a fight, I would be very upset. So, it's got to be tough. But fair play to both Shaq and Dustin Poirier.
Yeah,
very, very nice gesture. And what do we have here?
So next we have, obviously I spoke before about how Dustin was building a playground for disabled kids. He was donating all his fight kit. So as well as this, Max gave him a signed pair of gloves for the cause as well.
That was at the end of that video, wasn't it? He had the gloves in his hand,
Yeah. So Max gave him his signed gloves from the fight for the cause as well. I think the charity is actually called The Good Fight.
Nice.
So and as well as that, Eric Anders and Alan Joban gave their signed gloves as well. So,
very good.
That was really good as well. It's really good to see. Nice cause as well.
Very nice cause, yeah. And fair play to Dustin for doing that, and it seems like he's doing a lot of nice stuff for his community. And like I know Khabib done similar things like after he won, and it's nice. But you seen Eric Anders his tweet, or I think it was a reply to a tweet or a reply to an Instagram post. Did you see that last week?
No.
So Eric Anders took a beating off Khalil Roundtree last week in a fight, and Khalil Roundtree put up a picture of him kicking Eric Anders just in the middle of the fight. It was like a body kick or something, and Eric Anders replied underneath it and said, "Hope your shins are healing up soon. Get well." But he also posted like, "I haven't got my ass beat as much as whatever his birth date was when I got beaten up by Khalil Roundtree." It was very funny, but he seemed like a funny guy. Fair play to him for giving that on.
Yeah, good stuff.
Very, very nice to see. And but that's it. That's the end of the show. If you're tuning in on YouTube and you're tuning in right now, subscribe to the channel and check out some other videos on the channel. We're here every Tuesday. Usually Noel is here. He's not here today for the reasons I explained at the beginning of this video. And also like this video and comment and let us know your thoughts and your predictions on this weekend's card. And also give us your prediction on Khabib versus Poirier. Are you going to pick Poirier? You're going to do it? I don't know. There, but thanks for tuning in, and if you're listening as well, give us a review on iTunes if you will, and if not, whatever, it's cool. Cheers.
So apparently if you press this button somewhere here, it subscribes and you get all the notifications for the show. So hit that button there.
You have to click the bell though to get the notifications
here.
down the bottom.
Make sure you hit it and they get the ringer things because Rob didn't know. So it's the button there or there.
It's somewhere roughly around that area.